Hello and welcome to the Solano College TV Studios. My name is Dan, and today we will be discussing whether or not free speech should be curtailed on campus. Today we are joined by Katie, Jairus, and Benny. All right, one of you guys want to start off with?
Yeah, so to start it off, I don't want to say, I want to just put this on the standard of the speech. We are in defense of freedom of speech all on campus, and we aren't trying to protect people saying derogatory terms or anything like that, but really just in the sense of you have the ability to voice an opposing view on campus without being silenced or getting in trouble or something like that. And I think we've seen it across the nation how gradually different institutions and universities have tried to silence conservative and libertarian voices because they don't really fit with what they believe. And I just think that's something that should be stopped on campus across the nation. And I think if we don't stop it, we enter something that America has never been. And we hold true to our values of freedom of speech, and that's something that we need to hold true at these higher level institutions, and that's really what we're going to stand for in this debate. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, just following up on what he said, like, we don't want to protect like hateful speech or anything that will like incite problems. We're just trying to protect like differing opinions, like controversial opinions that some people may not want to hear about, but people have the right to talk about it on a campus, to voice their opinion or give information about. And like the thing is, like, if you don't want to hear it, you don't have to stand there and listen to it, but you can't just silence them because they have the right to say their opinion and give the information that they have out to the world.
But is their opinion okay if it's going to be rude and to put other people down and to be and not just saying you're wrong for how you are and what you believe in, and through whether it's racist, sexist, homophobic, like those core things, like is that still allowed? That, because I don't think that should be. That if you're gonna go that far to say that about someone, why can't you just keep that to yourself? And when, especially in a college campus, like why are you being that hateful? And I don't think that should be allowed, and that's where free speech should be stopped.
It seems like I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, but the issue that I see coming up a lot is so many people come onto campus trying to spout out certain ideas that maybe, I don't know, they've written a book about, so they're there to really make sales. Milo Yiannopoulos, for one, more of a provocateur than anything. But yeah, some of these people come onto campus and they tout the idea that whatever they say should be protected by free speech, but at the same time, it's what they're bringing on is not fostering any sort of an inclusive environment. It's not fostering an environment where, you know, people are allowed to really be included in the conversation.
I think it really comes down to where you fall on that line, because if you try to stop people like that, there are people on the opposite side of the spectrum, like people that will try to stop, like Milo will allow Kamala to come and speak. So it's like, if you're going to allow that far right, you have to allow the far left. And all I'm saying is we need to create a uniform system where you allow everyone to speak. I think that we spoke about Berkeley and how they tried to stop, I think it was Milo from speaking.
Milo and Ann Coulter and Ben Shapiro.
Yeah,
and
exactly. So all these conservative, like libertarian speakers. But if you look at Berkeley's history in the 60s, they fought for freedom of speech. So it's like we see how these schools are going from a complete 180 from where it's like, how are you going to stop me from speaking? But now I'm going to stop somebody from speaking. And it's really just something that we have to address, because although I think in the Bay Area specifically, we live in some type of like a bubble or something like that, where it's like you get an echo chamber of liberal ideas. So I think you should be allowed to voice those conservative ideas. And I understand that some of them might come off hateful or something like that, but I think we have to protect that speech, because it starts off with, okay, remove that hateful speech. Now remove the speech that I don't like. Now remove all the speech that doesn't align with what I'm saying. And it's a slippery slope there. Like, I hate that it falls onto the line of, okay, this is hateful speech, but you have to protect all speech. because it's really one of those things where you can't pick and choose what's okay, because then you have to determine who's choosing, and then it's off of a line of like, say I have an opinion that's against the government, right? And even if it's not hateful, like where it's not sexist or homophobic or like that, but if it's an opinion that can be seen as hateful, then I'm silenced. And that's where we get into the whole where it's like an oppressive government, and we enter like a police state, because then you're not allowed to voice those free thoughts. And I think that's something that if we don't correct it here, we'll look back in the past and be like, wow, like we stopped students from learning. Because I think in a higher level, like in a college room, we come here, at least I do, we come here to have our opinions challenged. And I think I've come here and I've had opinions before entering a classroom, and somebody just says one little thing, and then it's like, wow, like it makes me sit back like, man, like I would have never thought about that if we didn't have this discussion on something that a lot of people don't even want to have the discussion on. Like I was on student council, and there's an anti-abortion group that comes around, and it hits every community college, and they have like huge posters with aborted fetus. And don't get me wrong, like I do not agree with what their follow through and how they do it, but the student council in Solano wanted to stop them from speaking altogether. And I'm in there like, whoa, like don't get me wrong, like I'm not either side, but you can't stop somebody from speaking anti-abortion but then allow somebody to speaking pro-abortion, or either way. You just have to let them both speak. And the only reason that stopped them is the ACLU would have come in and like tried to stop them from like preventing this group from speaking. So I just think it's one of those things. But
I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. The issue that always comes up now is that a lot of these speakers that are allowed to come onto campus are perpetuating ideas that are inherently dangerous. And what I mean by that is like a lot of these speakers have a lot of nationalist ideas that seem to be really gaining traction with certain communities in the United States. And by allowing that to perpetuate, it's like, take for instance, like in Germany, it's like, it's illegal to have a Nazi flag, right? It's illegal to say certain things, to make certain symbols alluding towards a part of their past that's really horrible, really horrific. Like everyone agrees with that. So I think right now it seems like we're willing to take a little bit of a step back in order to say like, hey, these ideas are scary enough to where like we don't want them to foster and fester in some of these communities. And the only way to do that, unfortunately, is to take a step back from some of our free speech rights.
But taking a step back, then people don't have the information on these ideas. Like, yeah, some of the information could be hard for people to hear. It could go against what they want to hear. It could make them angry. But people have to realize there are different opinions out there, and everyone has a different opinion. It can't just be like one opinion going forward, because then it's just a stalemate somewhat.
and that's what makes us American.
But,
like,
you're saying like if we don't go back and we don't teach about like Nazi Germany and we don't say like this was bad, like if we say that and then you say you can't be this way, this isn't a proper way to treat people and act, and by stopping free speech there, saying you should not hate people for these things and you shouldn't preach this, then that is, yes, it's limiting your free speech, but it's creating a safer environment for everyone to be able to have
That's the
their
goal.
own free speech, whether it's through religion or politics, because you're not being hateful and inciting hate through your personal beliefs of, like, say, being a Nazi.
Well, for like talking about like Nazi Germany, all that, like their speech, I wouldn't think anyone would say their speech was really informational or like a view. There was like, that was just straight hate speech against one kind or like one section. And we're not trying to like protect that sort of hate. Like that's targeting speech. Like they were meaning to like take down this sort of area. What we're trying to talk about is like informational or controversial speech, like on abortions, like on topics that are like really controversial, and like where areas could be really one-sided, but there's still that small group that wants to be heard about their opinion on it. Not like speech that like just targets somebody.
But isn't that free speech, is when you're targeting someone? Isn't that what you guys are saying is okay and should be allowed no matter what? Is that you can say things, you can target certain groups and voice your own opinion?
I think it differs in the idea of like, I'm not saying you should be allowed to have a hate group on campus. I'm saying you should be allowed to voice differing views. If you have a group on campus where all they speak is just hateful, remove this group or something like that, I think that shouldn't be allowed. But I think it's more of like, it's not really that. I think it's more of just like, okay, he's saying something that's not my opinion or not my something that I believe in, so stop him from speaking. And I think you spoke on safety, and specifically, I think it's turned to where people that want to stop these conservative people from speaking, they highlight the whole safety, but usually it's the opposite of what happens. These conservative people try to speak on campuses, and they're the one that are being attacked. And if you try to silence them, don't they lose some type of their like peace of mind and their safety, where it's like if you silence them, you help the population, but you still silence one person. Where I'm saying it should be free to all, where it should be like, it shouldn't be, okay, he has one bad idea, don't let him speak. I'm saying he has a bad idea, but I'm still going to protect his right to say that bad idea, because I think that's truly what like being an American is. Like, that's what we ground ourselves in, these rights that we have, and that's just really where I want to protect it, because if you lose that, you lose what being American is.
Okay.
Really.
I think we've pretty well laid out a lot of our frustrations on both sides and where we stand. So when we come back, we will see if we can come to some sort of a consensus, or at least maybe a little bit of a give and take here. So stay tuned.
If you are interested in a career in sports broadcasting, whether you're commentating a live game
or hosting your own TV show,
or working behind the scenes, then this is the class for you.
For more information, contact Greg Poff, that's me, at solano.edu.
we hope to see you here next semester. And remember,
It's more than just sports, it's an education.
Welcome back, everyone, for the second part of this discussion regarding free speech on campus. Hopefully we can come to some sort of a consensus or a little bit of an exchange of ideas here. So does anyone want to start with maybe a concession or two?
Well, like, I'm all about like live and let live, and like, because I don't know, me personally, I don't let words get to me. So like, for me, like hearing somebody talk about like opinions that don't agree with mine, I'm able to just like put it to the side, but understand like there are people out there that are really strong to their own opinions,
Right.
And in hearing those opinions, it angers them. But to me, like, as long as it's not like hateful speech or like directly targeting a group in a hateful manner, I feel like it's more on people need to learn to accept other people's ideas, and that's why they should be able to speak here. As long as like, if they're targeting people or being hateful, yes, we could like they shouldn't be speaking that way. But like if they're just trying to voice information or opinions that goes against the majority, and the majority don't like that, I feel like we can't silence them.
I liked what you had just previously said before we went to the break of where you should allow somebody to say something, because if they say something that goes too far, you maybe can then educate them on how it is too far and say, that's not cool.
Exactly.
And you can then teach them why it's not cool and how they can still maybe hold their ideals that they've been raised on or whatever. They can still hold them, but develop them in a way that isn't then inherently evil.
Exactly.
And so they're able to learn and grow. And because having that open speech in a classroom, you're able to hear, like, you may not be willing to speak up on an idea, but somebody else might. And whether it's for or against you, you can then realize your own opinion might be too closed off or it might be too open. And because of what somebody else said, you're able to learn and grow. And so that element of free speech on a campus is really important.
Yeah, and like I said, I just think we need to really try to mend the polarized sides that we have in the United States right now, where it's like we've become a society where we've become two sides and we forget that we're all American. And I think we need to have these conversations, because if we don't have them, it just gets worse and worse. And I know in my past I've spoken to like racist people, and like thankfully we've come to, like, at the end of the conversation, we come to a point where some of their beliefs have changed and some of my beliefs have changed. Like I used to be really anti like certain things, and once you talk to somebody that's pro those things, you get to see the opposite side. And I think that conversation is what creates like a joining of, or recommitting of like what we need to do, and it's just something that we need to try to keep going and just keep the conversation open.
And on a college campus, you're really getting people, not necessarily community college campus, but on more of a university, you're getting people from a lot of different places.
Exactly.
And because of that, you get a lot of different opinions and a lot of different experiences, and having that freedom of speech, you're able to hear more and continuously learn more.
Exactly, and like on college campuses, like you're going to learn more. And how are you supposed to learn more if you silence opinions?
Yeah, exactly.
In hearing other opinions, you're able to maybe change your opinions or even grow as a person, because you're learning more about what other people think, and that's why you go to college, is to learn and advance your education.
The hesitation, though, on the part of a lot of people who have concerns about this free speech issue is, especially on college campuses, is that the way that a lot of these campuses were established in the first place kind of set up a lot of groups to become marginalized even on campus in such a way that they don't think that their own speech is able to get out. So the concern is like, if we start inviting some of these people who have ideas that perpetuate that system, that continue to perpetuate the marginalization of certain groups, that free speech won't be protected in the first place, because a lot of people some people may get carried away with that idea and rise up and even perpetuate that further. It's like, so how would we deal with that then? How would we decide like which ones are actually going to perpetuate,
Well, I think by having people be more open, then you're able to, if you're open to hearing somebody's bad opinion, then you can go and talk to them and teach them why it's bad. And
I mean, it's not always the way it works.
It's
though.
not
That's
the way it
issue.
works.
It's like it
I
doesn't.
think in that
Yeah.
setting, I think we just need to create a situation where if somebody wants to speak, like say a Ben Shapiro wants to speak, you should have the ability to like have another speaker with him to oppose his views. And I think it shouldn't just be an echo chamber where it's like he's up there speaking and it's just all his fans, and then that creates the like hostile environments that you're talking about. But if you have the more of like a panel and it's different views, I think that's more of like a constructive learning situation. I think
I would
that's
agree
how
with that.
we can like focus on like trying to like, so say if he comes, we have somebody on the exact opposite come and they both speak. And I think
Maybe
that's-
allowing some sort of a panel where, like, let's take Berkeley for instance. It's like it would be really easy to find a couple people who could have some questions for Ben Shapiro and his views, but maybe even more than, because it seems like a lot of people were still upset even after professors who opposed Shapiro's ideas showed up and asked questions. But maybe if we did have select members of people of groups who feel marginalized, maybe if they elect one person or two people or even three people to get up there with prepared questions to say like, okay, this is how we want to address your ideas right here and
Yeah,
now,
just
and
like
we hold those
yeah.
speakers to answering
Or
those.
just like anyone that has opposing views to be able to get their views in too. Like we have to allow like an area where both sides could just be heard, and like not like, because if you only have one side being heard the whole time, then it just doesn't really go anywhere. But if you allow for opposing views to just question or even be there too, to add to it or try to show their opinion too, it allows for, I feel like, the conversation to grow even further.
So maybe instead of like curtailing the conversation altogether, we could change the way the conversation takes place on campus,
Exactly.
kind of a thing.
Exactly.
I would be very much in favor of
I
that.
think I would too.
Yeah.
I think we've come to a happy middle.
Yes.
Wow, that was tied neatly with a bow. All right, perfect. Anyone else have any final thoughts? Anything you want to share? All right, well, perfect. Thank you all for joining us on this very enlightening discussion about free speech on campus, and we hope to see you next time.
The exponential growth from the program from my first year to my third year now, that's what keeps me coming back and keeps me excited and just like fulfills me as a person.
It's so impressive, and we every time we walk in here, you guys are doing something different. It's great. It's great.
Nothing but opportunities here, and we have sports to cover, we have the equipment.
Because the more ambitious you are, the more opportunities you'll have.
On-the-job training is huge.
Get the hands-on experience.
When someone asks who can do it, you can raise your hand and say, I can do it. So
Joining the class was the best decision I ever made.
Cross court to Audrey Jones. Audrey for three. It is good! With 1.3 seconds left on the game clock. Audrey Jones with one of the biggest shots.
The sky's the limit, really, with what we can do here.
College just got affordable. Up to 100% of enrollment fees can be reimbursed for first-time college students taking full-time classes. At Solano Community College, we are taking full advantage of this to further your future. With certificate and degree programs in industrial technology, aeronautics, biotechnology, and many others, Solano Community College is a staple for success. For more information, please contact the Financial Aid Office at 707-864-7000.